All right. Excellent. We're going to welcome everybody. We're going to wait just a second while everybody gets logged in. We don't want you to miss any of today's webinar. Right. Okay. All right, as everybody is logging in, I want to welcome you all to Webinar Wednesday. We're very excited to have you here again with us today. Today we have Dave Burleigh and Ed Hauck talking about the IKEA philosophy and how you can learn from their monumental success and adapt it into home building. I do have a couple of housekeeping items I want to share before we get started. Today's webinar is being recorded, so if you would like to revisit, you can visit it on our website at www.builderpartnerships.com and then click on the events tab. If you have questions during the webinar, we will reserve all questions till the end. Feel free to click on the two speech bubbles down at the bottom of your screen, the Q&A. You can type in your questions there and then I will read them out loud to Dave and Ed and we'll go ahead and answer those at the end of the webinar today. If you have any issues with the Zoom or any questions specifically to me, you can reach me through the chat bubble and I can go ahead and help you behind the scenes if you need anything. With that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to our two experts, Dave and Ed. Take it away.
Perfect. Thanks, Imogen. Ed, do you want to start off and give your introduction?
Morning, everybody. My name is Ed Hauck. I probably know most of you from the list I saw last night. I'm with Shin Consulting. I've been with Chuck and them for the last 9 years. In the last pretty much 2 years, Dave and I have spent a tremendous amount of time literally trying to help builders with lumber. The lumber crisis is really changing the way we do business. I met Dave probably 4 or 5 years ago at the Executive Summit or IBS, I forget where it was, one of those. And anyway, we've become really good friends, and all we're doing now is literally trying to help builders control their lumber costs. When Dave and I were away a few weeks ago, Dave explained to me his theory on how to manage lumber through the IKEA process. So Dave, you want to tell them a little about yourself, what you've been doing, and we'll get going.
Yep. So my name's Dave Burleigh, also with Shin Consulting. I come from a long career of running purchasing and estimating teams for national and regional builders, and joined Shin about 9 months ago now, so that we could focus more on just helping builders really understand where we can improve what we're doing. So today we're going to go through, just to start, a little bit about IKEA itself so that we understand why we use them as a model of who we should want to emulate more. We're going to talk about assembly, bundling, and master lists. We're going to talk about details and material use. We'll close out with what can we do in the home builder world that's similar to what IKEA is doing that they've been successful with. Then we're going to finish up with having a question and answer period at the end. So first off, why did we pick IKEA as the model of the retail environment of who home builders should strive to be more like? Over the last 20 years, IKEA went from being in just a couple of cities in the country to having 51 stores here in the US today. They have 60 million visitors to their stores every year, plus another 400 million that are shopping online. To say the least, they have a cult-like following. People that love IKEA will use IKEA for everything. And their warehouse currently has about 12,000 different SKUs that they offer. In addition to, we all know them for their furniture and home goods, decor, stuff like that. But they also now have become a huge player in kitchen and bath remodeling and appliances as well. So as we go through the webinar today, we're going to talk through, one sec. Ed, can you not see my screen? It shows I'm sharing.
I do not see it.
I can see your screen.
Oh, here, I'll reshare.
While Dave's doing that, when he explained this concept to me, by the way, I thought it was the most amazing concept I've ever seen, on really how well, after he told me this, I logged on to IKEA and started looking. It's insane how much more detail they give than what we as builders give our teams to build our houses, by the way.
Do you guys have my screen again?
I can see it.
Okay. So as we're walking through today, the examples I'm going to use are from something called the Burleigh bookcase. We picked that one because that particular bookcase has been sold over 60 million times as of 3 years ago. It's one of their most popular things that they offer. And then just so that we can kind of compare as we start digging into this, when we're thinking of a $40,000 to $60,000 lumber package and what kind of information we supply versus what does IKEA supply for a bookcase that's somewhere between $99 to $149. So in the IKEA model, they essentially use assemblies. So in the case of the Burleigh bookcase, it's actually the bookcase is one SKU, and then the doors are a separate SKU. So similar to how we have a base house plus our options, they assemble that same way. So the base house in this case is the bookcase, and then they have an option to add doors to that bookcase. Every IKEA assembly includes a material list. We can see over here on the side, their illustrative introduction. So they're going to tell us what tools should we have, how many people should it take to complete this task, are there any tips to avoid damage as you're building this, what do you do if there's a problem, and then they always finish everything off with a safety reminder. So for universal application, IKEA uses pictures. IKEA, if you go to the main page of their assembly guide, they offer instructions in 28 different languages. So instead of writing all this stuff out in 28 different languages, they use pictures to tell you how do these parts and pieces go together to get the full assembly of the bookcase. In addition to having those pictures, each one also details what parts do you use for each one of those steps. And then if you get into an area where there may be a common error happening, so in the building world, windows, corner details, trim details, things where we're constantly fighting, how should this be done right? IKEA actually zooms in to that area to make sure that you understand what the right way to do it is versus what the wrong way to do it is. They're always going to give you a parts list. In addition to having this illustrative version of the part list, they have the part number associated with each one as well, so that you can quickly identify by picture what you should be using. And then if you run into a problem, you know exactly what part number it is that you have an issue with. One thing I also love to point out here is in the building world, we think of waste factor as an all or nothing type of an equation. So we take an entire category such as roofing and we say we're going to add 10% waste factor to it. If we follow the IKEA method, we should really be looking at what are the things that we truly need waste in. So in this example that's on the screen, out of all these different parts that they have, only the nails actually have a waste factor because they've determined that that's where you're going to have a problem. So they gave you 2 extra nails up front. Everything else, they give you the exact quantity that you need in order to construct the bookshelf. Along with their instruction manual on how to assemble this, they also give you best practices. So in these illustrations that we're seeing on the right-hand side of the screen right now, they're actually showing you you're going to nail right in the middle of that center support. So they actually walk you through how to draw that out to make sure that you have a clear line to follow and know exactly how to use that material. Again, knowing you only get 2 extra nails, so they're trying to help you not exceed their waste by giving you best practices and how to handle that. For each step of the assembly, they're again going to tell you what parts to use, how many of those parts you need to use, and then show you how those different components come together for that particular step. So as builders, there's a lot of things that we should be doing that are similar to IKEA. If we did a true IKEA book on how to build a home, it would be a massive book. But we can say, well, let's use our detailed books to get into those obscure parts of the home. Let's make sure that we have clear trim details that are drawn out so that people understand how are we doing this crown or how are we trimming out our windows, etc. We want to have window and door details. So when our framer is framing, we don't want him to decide what's the best way to frame that opening. We actually want to tell him, this is the way you need to frame the opening. Because that's the amount of material that we've supplied to do the job, is the amount of material it's actually going to take to do the job. So if we give them the material but don't tell them how to use it, we're setting ourselves up for some problems. Same with corners. When we're framing our corners, we like to use terminologies like 3-stud corners and 4-stud corners and things that have some gray area in what that actually means. We want to detail, how do we frame corners? How do we frame an inside corner? How do we frame an exterior corner? How do we frame our wall intersections? We want to make sure that we have clear illustrative examples of how we expect that work to be completed. Second is communication. So we don't need to worry like IKEA does about 28 different languages in construction, but generally speaking, there's at least 2 languages being spoken on our job sites. To help overcome that, it's where illustrations really help. If everything is just written out in a scope of work form, we're not giving illustrative versions of what we need, we're creating a language barrier for ourselves. We want to make sure that anything that we're passionate about, that we're very concerned that we want a specific method used or a specific way to do something, we want to try to use illustrations instead, whether that's from CAD, whether it's just a detailed book, whatever method that you want to use to make sure that someone can quickly look at the picture and understand what it is that you're asking to be done. Our material lists should also be clear and concise. So we want to make sure that our descriptions are easy to understand and free of confusion from similar parts. So we have multiple parts that go onto a purchase order that are very similar with some minor differences. We want to make sure those differences are clearly stated so that our trade partner understands exactly what it is that we're asking to be delivered to the job site. Whenever possible, we can utilize uses. So a lot of the ERP systems today allow you to type in a use for a material. That's very helpful to explain what is this material for. Rather than just giving my lumber supplier a huge list of lumber, I want him to know what's my bottom plate, what was my top plate material. Studs are pretty self-explanatory. Where are my jacks? Where are my kings? Where are my cripples? Where's my shear blocking? If we tag those parts for their specific use, then we're helping the trade partner understand what our intent was with that material that was delivered. By the same token, if we're using the same material, studs is a great example, in both the base house, and then we have additional studs because of an elevation, and then we have additional studs because of structural options. We want to make sure that those are labeled as such so that the trade partner understands how many of those studs went to base house, how many studs did I add or subtract due to an upgrade in an elevation, how many studs did I add or subtract for each one of my structural options. so that again, they understand exactly what we supplied and for what purpose. The easiest way to go about this is to estimate with assemblies. So when we use assembly-based estimating, we're pre-solving all of our details. In this example that's on the right-hand side of the screen, this is a 16-foot long, 8-foot tall, 16 on center wall. I know by looking at this illustration how many studs I need, what I need for my top plate, what I need for my bottom plate, how much OSB I need. We could turn on the layer to see how much insulation do we need for the cavities. We could turn on another layer to see how much drywall do we need. So when we build out those assemblies that way, we're following that IKEA method of, I'm not worried about what it takes to build the entire house at this point. I'm worried about what does it take me to get through this wall specifically. And then I'm going to add all of those assemblies together to get my total material for the home. In addition to helping solve the materials, is it also gave us an illustration that we can provide to show how to build that specific wall. It shows clearly what went into this wall so that the framer understands what our expectation is on a 16-foot, 8-foot tall wall. To help expedite the ability to use that material, we want to always consider utilizing pre-cut framing. So this is like a ready frame, or there's alternatives to that system. But each wall in your home then is pre-cut and bundled so that you can follow the IKEA method of assembling that wall, stand it up, move to wall number 2, unbundle it, assemble that wall per the instructions, stand it up, and continue to move around the house. You can do this through someone like ReadyFrame, who offers this service to design and pre-cut all of your lumber package for you. We do have customers that we worked with that do this in-house. So they 3D model out their home, they figure out what their cut lists are, and they actually pre-cut all that material before it's sent out to the job site. And Ed may want to pop in here for a second, you can also negotiate this with your framer. There are framers out there across the country that will show up the day before the home frames and do all that pre-cutting and separate the walls out so that when framing starts, they're actually ready to start framing immediately. Ed, do you want to add to that at all?
Yeah, you actually read my mind. When you got to this section, we're working with a couple of builders right now. When Ron, our guy Ron, does the 3D frame, it comes up with a cut list. And essentially with that little wall section Dave just showed you, think about that wall section to the whole first floor of your house. You're going to know all your cripple sizes, all your jack sizes, everything you need to know, all your headers, all that material can be ready to go. And if you start figuring out how to manage your lumber this way, and actually, you know, Dave talked about the use field in some of the job cost systems. When we can estimate a house as tight as we can to save money, but if we don't teach the field teams how to utilize the lumber, it's not going to work. What Dave's just describing here with all the assemblies and the pre-cut and really getting more visual, if you look at a 3D version of a house, and some of you folks may have seen this webinar we've done before, the 3D version of a house is extremely visual. Where when you look at a plan, not everybody in the field understands what that the plan means in frame terms. And right now, every time we waste a 2x4, it's $10. You know, every time we just start messing up in the field, it's huge amounts of money. So all this really using the ready frame concept, you know, which is an awesome concept, you can do it yourselves. In my old days, I had an Amish framer who had literally a handwritten book with all his cut lists. If you take the time, either do it the way Dave and Ron do it, or work with your field on how to use this material much more cost effectively. The amount of waste we have on job sites these days because the cost of lumber is insane. Dave talked about it as a $60,000 lumber package, but there's no details on how to use materials. So Dave's process he's describing is just getting more hands-on and getting more visual. I love the visual effects that that IKEA uses. how can we do that better? There's no language barrier pictures, right, Dave?
Correct.
So anyway, at the end, we'll do some questions and answers, but I love this way of speeding things up, working with your framers, how to make them more efficient. In my world, I just met with a framer to start a custom house I'm going to do. I'm using this method with him. Very receptive. One of the builders we're working with, we actually are meeting with the framers to help them better manage the lumber. If I can't just, I got to teach them how to use lumber better. It's too expensive not to spend time doing this.
Perfect. Thanks, Ed. So what we're after with these pre-cut packages, Ed hit the first one, is we want to reduce waste. When studs are up around 10 bucks a piece, waste is very critical. The tighter we can get our framing package, the tighter we can control how the material is used, then the less money we're going to be cutting out to that framer all the time. Second part is we want to increase the speed. Time is money. Everyone's cycle times are getting longer and longer. If we can help the framer out by cutting out some time on that prep work, by getting everything pre-cut, then our process of actually framing the home is going to be much faster. So we're going to be able to start shaving some days out of our cycle time. And the third part is you're getting higher quality this way. When we're becoming more defined on what the expectations are and how you're supposed to use the material, then we know moving forward, every time you build that house, it's going to be framed exactly the same way. That's critical to us to make sure that we're building every home exactly the same. We've all been in the position where something is slightly different between one home to the next, and we wind up getting stuck in this back and forth with the home buyer because of these minor differences, because we didn't set a standard of how we're going to get the job done. The best way to handle controlling our material usage as well as getting our illustrative versions at the same time is to use 3D modeling. So when we model in 3D, one, we're getting our material usage. So we can start turning all the layers on, and I'm going to get my lumber package. I'm going to get what do I need to build my roof structure? What do I need to roof my home? What do I need for sheathing, drywall, insulation, etc. But not only am I getting all those materials, I'm also getting the cut sheets that Ed referenced. So now each one of these walls has an independent cut sheet that lets us know where does everything need to be cut, what material am I using to build this wall specifically. And then the third part is we're getting an illustration. So we have the ability to share this 3D model onto an iPad, a Microsoft Surface, any computer, and our field team, our purchasing team, and our framers can actually move around this home, look at the wall that they're framing, and make sure that they're matching the standard that you set for how that wall should be framed. It's a great way to go because we're killing a bunch of birds with one stone. So we're getting our estimate done, we're getting our details done, and we're providing those IKEA visual instructions all in one shot. One process encompasses all three of those. Emma Jane, do we have any questions yet?
So Dave, do me a favor, jump back to that 3D drawing. If we had SketchUp open, you can pick this house up, spin it, twist it upside down, inside out, do a virtual walkthrough, count studs. In this particular case, the builder has multiple foundations for this home. Slab, this is a cinder block crawl. They have a concrete foundation on a crawl model, 8 foot and 9 foot. One of the problems in the past was getting the accurate information for that foundation. Once you have this in 3D, it's extremely visual and able to understand what's exactly involved in it. Not to mention when we use Dave's highly customized version of PlanSwift, we're actually getting all the counts of material, whether it be unit pricing of block or concrete or whatever. The thing I like most about this 3D, and I was on a call this morning, on a Zoom this morning with a house with a builder, literally showing opening by opening how it's framed. And Dave and I have also done walkthroughs on site, and we've also done Matterport walkthroughs where the builder does a Matterport. We walk through and say, this is how we've designed the house, this is how we've estimated the house, but this is reality. And the nice thing about that is I start to get buy-in from superintendents to my field managers and the framers, because now they understand what we're trying to accomplish, and we can actually monetize what the savings is between this optimized version of a frame versus what happens in reality. In reality, it's too often up to the framer's personality of how they feel like framing that day versus being very strategic on how I'm going to use my material. So any comments on that, Dave, and any questions from Emma Jane?
I do have questions, unless Dave, you want to add on to what Ed said.
No, I think Ed hit it right on the head.
Okay. So Todd wants to know, what are some of the best software programs to generate to-be-built 3D models of framing? We currently have our truss designers generate a 3D model using MyTech software of our EWP and trusses, but they don't offer this for the walls.
Yep. So for the walls, the best one we found, and I'm going to say best on ease of use, cost of entry, and ability to train quickly, is Google SketchUp. Along with, they have multiple framing plugins that they offer that allow you to draw the house out and do your framing model that way. And it also, that's what this example is. It actually did the truss system as well. It's not the MyTech structure version of it. So there likely will be some differences between what MyTech would produce and what this produces. But we still want that, because then we're going to look into what are the differences and are they required. All too often our roof systems are over engineered. The kind of rule of thumb for most structural engineers is take what meets code and then add 20% just to be safe. The argument would be meeting code is actually what's required. That extra 20% is just additional cost in the home that wasn't actually required.
So one other thing, Dave, to add on to that, for Todd, for you, the trusses, I would like to know a whole lot more detail when I'm reviewing trusses. When Dave and Ron do this version, I can actually see and plan how I want to do things. I want to know some cost information from the truss companies. Each truss company does things differently. And to Dave's point, the efficiency, the economical efficiencies, I want to look at and start knowing literally down to cost, truss by truss. Am I sheathing gables? Am I not? How much are they charging for that service? Am I using girder trusses? Am I using parallels? There's a lot of cost value evaluations that you want to do when reviewing this. And by the way, we did it with the builder back in the fall. They've been using the same company for years. We literally found about 15% in trusses just by making sure, not just rubber stamping them and accepting what they give me. To Dave's point, look at it, view it, and challenge them in some cases.
Follow-up comment from Todd. First, can you confirm it's Google SketchUp, correct? That
Yes.
You're using? Okay.
Yep.
And Todd said, and that's the problem, we need completely accurate 3D models. Are you saying that SketchUp can design code compliant trusses with loadings, etc.?
Some of the plugins, the one we use is called Medeek, does have the ability to set your loading requirements.
Okay. Let's see. I think, Julie, I think we answered your question on what type of 3D modeling do you use. I have another question. Who is typically doing the 3D modeling, estimating, trade, purchasing, etc.?
So we see it a couple of ways. First off, we don't want the trade doing the modeling. I personally don't want my trade to do any of my estimating for me. I want to be responsible for my estimates. So that being said, we have a mix. There's certainly builders out there that are doing their own modeling, whether that's in Revit or SketchUp or any of the 3D available products out there. The majority that we see that we deal with, we actually, Shin Consulting acts as the third-party modeler that does the modeling on behalf of the customer.
Okay. Timothy wants to know, even with 3D modeling, what is the best way to estimate purlin, braces, and wall bracing?
So we're going to model that stuff as well. So when we get into our truss system, we'll model all of our bracing. If we're doing rafters, we're going to model our purlins. We're going to model our struts. We're going to incorporate all that in. All of our permanent bracing for shear, we're going to model in. The only thing we do not model is our temporary bracing. But we do try to reuse that temporary bracing for cabinet backing, for rat runs, for things like that, where a number 3 will more than suffice for its use. So we're accounting for that material in its permanent position, but using it as temp bracing initially.
So one thing Dave just mentioned, by the way, that nobody ever does every time we do an audit for somebody, nobody ever does it, is start specifying. Dave just mentioned number 3 grade 2x4s for bracing. More often than not, we're just ordering whatever the lumberyard has, which could be a much more expensive grade, a two and better, KD, just all kinds of varieties that literally are about a third more. In the past, it may not have mattered, but now in the days when a 14-foot plate is literally $25 versus can I go find another grade that's a couple of dollars less, it adds up fast.
I have a question from somebody that wants to know what production home builders are currently using the system, your system.
We actually have several, and unfortunately, I usually do not name names. There might be competitors in the market. We have several. If you want to talk offline, we could gladly set up some time and talk to you offline.
Okay, perfect. Julie wants to know that plugin. Can you spell it? I'll type it up in the answer.
MEDEEK.
MEDEEK?
Yep.
Okay. All right. For a builder doing 600 to 700 units, how many people would you allocate to just doing modeling?
So it really depends on how many plans you have. Typically when we model off of the master set and model out the base house, model out each elevation, each structural option, so that when we get to a site specific, we're going to make that combination and then take into account any grade changes. We have right now our backlog is about 25 3D models, and we're doing that with one modeler currently, and he's modeling a home about every 2 to 2.5 days, start to finish. Again, a master set, so that's the entire house, all the foundation conditions, all the elevations, all the options.
Excellent.
So,
thank you.
One thing I want to just be clear on this, one of the builders we're working for is in 4 different markets. That's actually this particular house is in 4 different markets. This house represents about 40% of their sales in some way, shape, or form. In just doing one house alone, just one house, one of their elevations, we're going to take 40% of all their sales. But keep in mind, for other builders we're doing this for, just doing that one house, we're teaching everybody a whole valuable lesson of stop wasting material. So for another builder we're working with, redoing the entire product line, we're going to model every single one of his homes because at 1,000 homes per year, it makes sense. Again, we're talking $60,000 lumber packages. The one is in the Southeast. It was a $75,000 lumber package. We were about $8,000 difference in the estimate from what their lumber company was doing, not to mention the waste was going on. So the stakes are pretty high for lumber right now.
Okay, last question. How do you handle adding 2 inches to the end of a house or 2 inches to the rear to a house?
Don't do it.
Oh,
So-
2 feet, sorry, 2 feet.
Oh, that's a little different. Go ahead, Dave.
Sorry.
So in the modeling world, you grab each assembly that needs to be moved that 2 feet. So we're going to grab our foundation assemblies, we're going to grab our walls, we're going to grab our roof, and we're going to make that 2-foot extension. And then you literally click update and it remodels to that new extension. This particular house actually has 2 different 6-foot extensions that were modeled in also based off of the original. Again, by moving those assemblies and letting it recalculate. Most of those changes are extremely fast in the modeling world. We would hope that a 2-foot extension is an actual structural option where it's being accounted for in the master set anyways. But even if you do have some customization, you save a copy of the original for that customization, move those walls or stretch those walls as needed, and then refactor.
So one thing to add on to that comment, a lot of the builders right now are starting to figure out that the customization is costing them a lot of time. Just on soft cycle alone, the extended time is costing you a fortune. So we're seeing a lot of builders right now is they are starting to reduce any kind of customizations, all pre-planned, all in the effort to keep everything as simple as they possibly can.
All right. We have one more question in the chat. What is the average cost for Shin to model each plan?
So that varies greatly based on the plan complexity, how many options, how many elevations. Typically, we're seeing an average of probably about 2,200 to about 3,200 for a complete master set. Again, it's a case by case. We take the plan, we review it, schedule out what that time commitment is going to be to get all of those individual one-offs properly modeled.
Well, excellent. That is the end of the questions. I think there's a couple extra slides here at the end. Does anybody else have any other questions as we go through the last few slides? It looks like we're all set. Well, if you need anything, we're here for you. We offer all kinds of services ranging from rebates to consulting, coaching, builder groups, all that good stuff. So we're here to help you be successful in whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish as a builder in today's market. Oh, what did he say was the cost again? Oh, he missed it. It was, you said 2,200 to 3,200 based on the size of the plan and the complexity of the plan.
Yep, that's about the average range we're seeing today.
Yep. So they do go through and make sure that they look at the plan and evaluate the time that's required to estimate that, to work on that plan.
So Dave has also developed a questionnaire, and the questionnaire we send out, we ask a whole lot of questions. More often than not, to Dave's point about the IKEA method, more often than not, we don't have enough information to actually do an estimate. So the questionnaire is extremely helpful, and going through the process really makes you evaluate how much time, how much money you're spending or wasting on some of your designs and not implementing properly. So just going through that and getting, like in this particular case, the builder is doing the one model, but we're going to continue going model by model by model, because they build these houses enough. This is why we're always harping about stop carrying so many plans. Dave and I had a call earlier in the week for 100 houses a year. They had about 30 plans, but they only built 6. So get better at building 6. Don't worry about the other plans.
Exactly. We have actually 2 more questions. Can you do intersecting options with your 3D modeling?
You can, yes. Yep, so we model each option independently. and then we can start combining the options to see what happens as they overlap each other.
Excellent. And
So
the
the
final, oh, go ahead, Ed.
Oh, go ahead. Well, I was going to say the next step, what Dave and Ron do this 3D modeling. The next thing they do, just so you know, the rest of our process is Dave has this highly customized version of PlanSwift that has over 16,000 wall assemblies. But the other really nice thing is from that version of PlanSwift, we will use our integration tool and implement right into, in some cases, for example, we'll integrate right into Mark systems with integration. And we're starting to work with some other builders using that integration tool. On top of that, we just started another project with a builder, very high-end townhouses, but they're a small builder. They don't have a job cost system. So with one of our purchasing team, we're going to take that estimate, literally create a bid sheet and be able to export it for the smaller volume builders using the integration tool, PlanSwift, and 3D modeling.
Okay, we got 2 more questions.
Whoops.
Okay, first it's from Zach. Do you have a sample IKEA book that you created that you can share?
Yeah, so Emma Jane, I'll send you one if you want to send that out in the follow-up.
Okay.
Or anyone, if you go to IKEA.com, anything they have on their website, the assembly instructions are on that same page. So if you go into a certain bookshelf and scroll down to the bottom, you can actually pull the assembly instructions right there as well. That's actually kind of fun to do, to see the difference between the really easy stuff and you get into some of their wardrobes and stuff that are 50, 60 page booklets on how to assemble them. You can get a really good array of what level of detail they're willing to go to.
Oh, and Todd is thinking that they're referring to an IKEA-like version for a home, if you've created one.
Yeah, so we could send out screenshots from a 3D model, as well as the cut sheets that correspond to this.
Okay, does that answer your question, Zach? Yes, okay. And then we have one more question. We have a 3 floor plan series. We're shifting to mainly building one of the 3. We feel the need to keep the other 2 active, so we have plans at multiple price points to hit the market if it changes. I know less is more, but do you have thoughts on this?
Yes, I do. So let me start by giving a full disclosure to everyone that I came from D.R. Horton, where less is absolutely more. I'm a huge fan of having a limited number of plans with a limited number of sellable options. So you could run with just 3 plans if you have a good structural option program that's going to allow for those pre-planned changes to the home. Where we often see people get off track here is 3 plans, but then offer 25 options per plan. And then in effect, you actually have a whole lot more plans. So there's nothing wrong with a slim plan offering, as long as you follow that through completely and you have a slim elevation offering, a slim structural option offering, only offering what's actually going to sell.
So in our consulting world, every time we work with a builder, usually the biggest sin every builder has that has high direct construction cost and lower than prescribed gross profit, it's usually plans are the culprit. We keep developing plans. I always kid everybody that builders should belong to AA for home sets. Hello, I'm a builder and I have too many plans and I can't stop. We usually make things so complicated, we can't possibly track all these things. To build with what we were with earlier in the week, like I said, 100 homes a year and 30 plans, they only built 6 of them. We can't manage that. Dave and I just kicked off with a builder going to do 1,000 homes a year with 6 foundation plans and 6 foundations and 13 plans. Keep it simple. I mean, right now with the high cost and as high as the market is, you don't have to go this crazy. The builder I'm working with, one of the townhouses, has gone absolutely over the top with option on option on option. It's going to slow the build time down. And right now, it's just too hard to build. Don't make it harder than need be. And Emma's favorite word is what? Discipline. Have the discipline to stop doing this. Stop doing it.
Okay, so follow up. When reducing the amount of plans you are asking trades to price out, and with the primary goal of getting them to reduce your costs, any points to get them actually reduce their costs in the scenario when you are pulling out plans from what you offer?
So there's one builder who's on this call, and you know who you are when I say this. I won't call you out, obviously. But when you're going to bid constantly, you're really not the builder of choice. You're actually being a total pain to the trade. In the method Dave just prescribed, it's really you're controlling the units. All I need, you're controlling the parts and pieces. All I need is unitized pricing. Keep it easy for them. Stop making it hard. In this case, Dave's giving the lumber list. I'm not relying on a framer or a lumber company to do a lumber list. Make it easy for them. Dave, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's also, so if we take that example of cutting down to 3 plans, it's a great opportunity for us to meet with our trade partners and make sure that they understand we're actually simplifying their life as well. Now they only have 3 plans that they have to worry about, figuring out and learning the nuances of that plan. As long as we're reducing plans, not reducing our overall load, then that's an easy conversation to have. To say I'm going from 20 plans to 3 plans, but I'm still going to build 500 of them a year. Plus now I'm going to take on estimating on your behalf and pay you on purchase orders. These are all wins for the trade partner. It's just we need to communicate those things clearly. If they just hear through the grapevine or start to see it on their own that, hey, we used to have 20 plans, now there's only 3, they're probably going to get a little worried about that and think that that's some sort of writing on the wall. But if we're staying ahead of that by explaining why we're making changes and what the positive impacts of those changes are for them, then we're going to alleviate that concern that they have.
So one of the other things Dave and I just had a meeting just recently with the builder is literally starting back up a trade council for a builder with their trades to get their input as we're changing to this model. The trades have a lot of value in this discussion. And to Dave's point, I want to make it easier for them. I want them to want to work for me versus anybody else in my market and become the builder of choice. So reaching out to the trades, getting their opinion, and if you're going to get their opinion, make sure you respond if you're using their idea or not. So anyway, your trades are a valuable resource. If you're going to go from bid management to this source, you got to bring them in and talk to them. And that's one of the projects Dave and I are working on with a couple builders right now.
So a follow-up to that from the same person is, do you think they'll give you a discount midstream by simply removing a plan?
I certainly would push for one, because again, we're simplifying what they need to be concerned about moving forward. And we're simplifying their job by giving them less variables that they're dealing with. So I certainly think that if you have the conversation correctly, you should be asking for a reduction at the same time, but explaining why you're asking for that reduction based on simplification.
I'll give you another thought to add on to that. As you start to simplify, they can actually start to get better at building your houses. For example, when you have too much product, they're throwing numbers out there. You're adding trip charges in there. They start to factor this in. When you get really good at this and partner with them, again, going back to trade council concept, if you can make things much simpler, like Dave said, D.R. Horton does a very good job of keeping it simple, stupid. Some of the other publics, one that comes to mind is Lennar has got everything included. Everybody's going this concept for a reason. It's too hard to build these days. Make it easier. Stop making it hard on everybody.
Okay, I have 3 more questions. Zach wants to know who do we contact to discuss modeling options further?
You can contact myself, Ed, or Emma Jane, and we can certainly schedule a one-on-one to dig into much more detail together and have a good get to know you session so that we make sure we're on the same page.
Excellent. And Todd is wondering, where do you recommend a small builder moving to portfolio plans and go to source plans that are popular and value engineered for efficiency to build? Do you need me to reread that? Because I kind of fumbled it a little bit.
No, if you're looking for an architect, one of our trade partners, or what's the word I'm looking for, Imogen? One of our, I'm thinking of BSB.
Oh, yep.
Is
Steve Moore.
Yeah, Steve Moore. We do a lot of work with them. If you're looking for an architectural firm, if you have existing plans and need help on your existing plans, we could certainly set up a call for that as well.
Okay, and last one. With everything being 3D modeled in order to build homes more efficiently, have the builders you've worked with been able to negotiate with trade contractors because of this addition?
Absolutely. It is, I'll be totally transparent in saying it can be a tough road to get there. When we 3D model, we also help you work through that with your trade partners to make sure that we're discussing it properly for everyone to understand that this isn't just about you guys saving money. We want to communicate what the benefits for the trade partner are as well. For most of our clientele, we'll try to help you get through the bigger ones, the framer, your footing and foundations, those ones that we know are going to be tougher conversations and require a lot more finesse to get them there. But then by the time you've heard that pitch a few times and you understand what the goal of that conversation is, then you gain that confidence to have those conversations on your own with the rest of the trade partners.
Another thing to think about as you're using this concept, I might be able to negotiate not just price. I might be able to negotiate better crews, better staff crews, shorter durations. There's a lot of other things to think about. I did a presentation with IBS, an electrician from Dallas who does 6,000 homes a year, which is crazy. There's a whole laundry list of builders in his market he won't even work for. The builders that are highly organized and doing what we're talking about, he will actually put more resources towards that because he makes more money with that builder because they're easier to work with.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we don't have any more questions. If you have any last minute thoughts, we'll close the webinar. And Johnny says, thank you. That was a perfect answer. So with that, I want to thank you all for joining us for Webinar Wednesday today. Keep an eye out for our calendar on the upcoming webinars. We have, oh, wait, one more. Oh, thank you from David as well. You're welcome. We're so glad you guys were all here. Keep your eyes out for more Webinar Wednesday topics. We will have one with Burleigh in 2 weeks on March 30th, and he's going to talk about lighting in the home. So please join us in 2 weeks, and we look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Can you send a copy of the presentation? Yes, I think we can do that.